Hello and welcome to Stampscapes Friday Night Live, the last Friday of January in 2026. My name is Kevin and I'll be your guide today. All right, so this time we're going to experiment with this. I don't know what you call this pattern here, but it looks like hay or straw or something like that. It's a holographic printable vinyl sticker paper. Printable is the key word if you haven't seen these videos before. At least in terms of how I'm going to utilize this type of paper, I use a lot of the Brilliance water-based pigment inks. All other pigment inks are oil-based, so this one works really good with this type of paper because it's meant for water-based media, such as your inkjet printer at home. All right, so I'm going to create a forested setting. I go back to my tree trunks a lot when I'm experimenting with different types of papers. These larger trunks in here, and it's going to be a forest floor in here, but with a straw-like looking pattern, I thought I would do this like it's like a frozen night or something like that. That's what this kind of reminds me of when I saw it. Or I don't know, it didn't remind me of it, but it's what came to mind. All right, so I want to really darken this up quite a bit so that it's not so kind of overpowering. I guess you can use this, now I think about it too, you can use it as like an icy surface for like a bunch of ice skaters or something like that. I think that would be kind of cool with their marks on the ice, the scratch marks from the skates. I think that'd be pretty cool there. But this time, let's do a little bit more experimentation. I'm going to have this holographic kind of glistening in the moonlight. And I tried out a holographic moon in a recent piece of mine. Oh, I'm looking wherever it is. Is it this one right here? Yeah, this one right here. We have this holographic moon with this holographic dot pattern surface. I thought that worked pretty good, so we'll do that again here. And I put my holographic moon somewhere. Oh my gosh, where did I put that? Oh, here it is right here. And we'll put this right in here somewhere, and hopefully that will create somewhat of a visual relationship with the reflecting ice on our whatever forest floor, grass, whatever you want to call it. All right, so as far as the layout goes, I'm going to have these trees going off the top of my scene, and I might use a little bit of my taller art foamies tree trunks in here. Maybe I'll go for this larger one right here with the 3 trunks, and let's go from there. Okay, so I want this to be a pretty dark nighttime scenario. I think that would look pretty cool. You can do it daytime as well. I have a pre-folded 5x7 dark blue cardstock card base here, and I want to get some tone laid out in here before I stamp my trees out, my trunks out. So let's grab some black Brilliance ink here. You can use any type of ink. This is just a matte uncoated, I think, blue paper. I don't know, I bought these pre-folded cards just I don't know, on a clearance table at a place called Kelly Paper, so I'm not really quite sure. It doesn't say on the pack if it's a coated cardstock, but I happen to think that using a little bit of a thicker ink on this type of paper gets a little bit more coverage than, say, something like a dye-based ink or something like that. So I think I can get into the grooves a little bit more with a thicker type of paper. Waiting on the snow to start. Good to see ya. Now, when you say waiting on the snow, is it, I don't know, it's in the forecast then for tonight, Bonnie? All right. Getting a little bit of this vignette type of thing. This is a dark blue, but going on here with the black, I think we'll give it a little bit more of a vignette in here. So we get this little bit of a, I don't know, whatever, a dark blue glow, I guess you could say. You can kind of achieve any type of glow that you want, except for maybe on like a dark, like on a black glossy cardstock or something like that. But any type of dark cardstock, or just any type of cardstock, as long as you go to black and kind of give it a little bit more of a perimeter, vignette, you can kind of create this little bit of a glow in here, which is kind of fun. Hello, Zillacest. Oh, how much do you have? Yeah, icy. Well, we're gonna do an icy type of surface here, just like that. That looks like ice to me. We'll see if it does when I'm done here, though. How much snow is in the forecast? We had a little bit of a, flurry of activity with some snow up in our mountains. Gosh, it seems like it's been a month now. But I don't know, we got it all at once in California, or Southern California, and in the deserts. That I'm not really quite sure when we're going to get anything again. But like in the Sierras, there's a decent amount of snow, I think. But like I said, I don't know. I don't think there's been anything since that last storm. Okay, now I think I'm going to go with some... I don't know. Here's the thing, my dilemma here. I was thinking about doing like snow, but we wouldn't have so much this. Well, we could, but I want it to be more like a grassy type of area down below that's not just covered in snow. I wanted it to look like like an ice storm type of thing, or something like that. With the reflections off of the objects on the surface here. So I'll just go with some darker images up top. I could put some white pigment ink in here. Although maybe I'll do a little bit. I think it's just going to look a little bit unbalanced if I don't do any type of lightness up top besides the tree trunks. Here, let's go with something like this. I'll kind of have this a little bit of white in here, like in the distance, just something like really dull. And maybe that'll anchor the trunks down a little bit too. I'm not sure. 4 to 6 inches. Wow. We're, well, at least in a forest and not road, or yellow brick road stamp. Okay. White pigment ink. I'm going to have like the lighting right in here. Let's go down a little bit more. I just remembered I have that pretty large full moon, and I want there to be some space in there for it. I'll probably have an overhang of some leaves up top. So it'll need to go like something like that. So I don't want to bring this too high. Okay. Go like this. and I'm concentrating it in the center because I have that vignette type of thing working in here. So I'll have it lighter in the middle, and then it transitions to darker to the left and right of that, like that. So it's going to be like something like this. That's a little bit harsh. So I'm using the dry side of the cotton ball, and I'm just kind of spreading that out as if it were, something like, I don't know, like a pastel I'm working with or something. So I'll spread that around. The ink's dry pretty fast, but it's not so dry that you can't kind of manipulate it a little bit at least. Like that. And this like this. And let's do another layer in there, just for a little bit of depth. So I'm trying to find the the moist side of the cotton ball. Okay, I think that's right there. Or not. I just re-inked this white pad, Brilliance pad, so I don't want to use too much of it here. All right, let's just start off with something like that. I might apply more later, but I think that'll do for right now. Okay. So it's like a little bit of change in terrain, height, and then I'm just kind of figuring this out right here. I'm going for something like this. This was around a couple ponds, but I need to bring in some white pigment ink around in here so that, it's not just this menagerie of kind of texturing in here. And so I want to bring in some of the grass texture down here too in black ink. If I just stamp it over that, this crazy texturing, loud texture with this in black ink, it's not going to show up. So we need to mute and cover up some of this whatever visual noise on here. Okay. And then I thought it'd be cool if I can. I want to have some shadows running across here being cast by the trees. So I need to have some sort of surface on here in order to add the shadows down here and not just do it directly on top of this holographic cards, holographic vinyl. All right. I'm not exactly sure where to put this white ink on here with all of that in mind, but one of the things about this thing is that, this is one of those processes that it's not like you have to place it exactly in the right spot or anything like that. It's just wherever you place it, you just work around that. So, but it's good to have kind of the gist of what you're kind of going after, just in terms of how much of this do I want to apply on here, All right, so this is what this is looking like right here. And you can see it's muting a lot of that texturing and holographic surface in those areas that I apply this to. And if you want to get a little bit of a thinner application of it, where you still get some of that rainbowy type of metallic look, then you just apply, a couple layers of this, or a thin layer, and the areas where you want it more opaque and really muted and blocked out, then just apply additional layers until you get the coverage that is going to suit that purpose, or whatever your purposes you have for it. So for me, it's visibility of like a textures like this, and also some shadows to come across here. And you can apply some of this down, and if you think, oh, later on it's like, oh, I didn't add enough of it or something like that, then you can always add more. You can't necessarily remove it, though, once you add it down here like this, so I would say kind of just be a little bit conservative about it. You know, get what you think you're going to need, but you don't have to do it to completion. Might be adding more of this later. I might add some of this and add some black, and then I can add white over the top of that, you know. Nature Sheet 47 on Stampscapes. Hello, Janet. Oh, you and Bonnie, G 3719. When are you expecting that snow? Just any minute or something like that? Now, see, if you get too much of that, or it just kind of, you know, this season kind of extends too far into like spring, we'll stamp out some tropical, warm, you know, warm terrain scenes for you in these live streams. You can escape into escape into a warmer scenario, subconsciously. That's what happens sometimes. Sometimes we're stamping seasonally, and then, you know, if it's like chilly or cold or something like that, you know, just from a emotional or mental perspective, sometimes we start stamping out warmer scenarios. So sometimes people used to ask me this all the time, for both designs and stamping. They say, well, you know, do you stamp out or do you design things, images of, you know, places that you've been to? And that's, you know, that's part of it. But as far as like stamping goes, sometimes it's just you know, we stamp out the things, the places that we, you know, we would like to be, or we think it'd be pretty cool to be at in that moment or that evening or something like that, in the time that you you know, or whenever you stamp that day. Just like I want to go to whatever, the tropics or an island type of scenario, or warm weather, or I want to be looking over a sunset or something like that, and you just stamp it out. It's one of the little kind of benefits of you know, the scenic stamping genres. You can kind of mentally transport to those locations that you're depicting. All right. So we have something like this. It's like, you know, that looks like a fairly manageable amount of that patterning showing in there. You know, when it's this type of patterning going edge to edge, at least in a scene, if you're, you know, I wouldn't call this realistic or something like that, but if it's kind of meant to depict, you know, some sort of scenario, you know, something like this becomes a little bit more, I don't know, not realistic, but, you know, just a little bit more, I don't know, more realistic in comparison to just having this kind of wide open with all of that, you know, crazy pattern showing. So it would look like that. You know, as opposed to like this, you know. All right, so let's get our imagery stamped in here, and let's see if we can kind of create our foundation and scenario for, I don't know, this entire composition here. Let's get the this stamped out right here. I think these 3 trees right here. And I think I'll go for the 3 trees. These ones right back here, I'll have those ones coming out of that little area right in here. Like about like so, and then we'll put I really need to lock down that moon. I keep losing that moon every time I put it down somewhere. Where is my moon? Can anyone find the moon? All right. It'll show up here somewhere unless it fall on the floor or something like that. If you're a stamper, you know what where this is coming from. Aren't we always like losing stuff right in front of our faces? All right, let's get these stamped out here. Let's go with the, I'll just use the Brilliance. I used my Brilliance pad, or I inked up my Brilliance pad before I started this scene here. That moon is probably stuck to the bottom of something. Oh, starting in the morning, okay. Are you reading and pouncing ink the same time? Well, there's not a lot to read, so... Now, sometimes in the past, if the chat board's really scrolling along or something like that, it gets a little tough. All right, let's see here. Let's go down. I'll do this about... like so here. It's probably using about, what, I don't know, maybe 2/3 of the stamp. This is the Art Foamies Tree Trunk Trio here. Oh, I found the moon. Right over here. So that's like the second time that I've lost it in the course of 20 minutes here. I usually have to stamp, color the trunks a little bit darker after I stamp them out with the Art Foamies on a matte cardstock. That one came out pretty good though. I just need to re-ink. Who would have thought? All right, let's see here. I'll go like this up here and create a little bit of depth. When you do something small, higher up on the composition, it looks farther back in terms of perspective. So if you do it on the same height right here, it would just kind of represent a little bit of a smaller, you know, set of trunks. If they're on the same height, you know, for whatever, vertically, as far as the base goes. I call that Western perspective in whatever, art. Which is most, I don't know, it's most of the perspective that we're going to be doing. I heard that, like in some Eastern types of artwork, the location in which they stamped something, I think it represented something like different periods of time or something like that. Or different, yeah, doesn't have to be eras of time or something like that, but the location of things represented, yeah, not something more kind of visually, but uh, time referenced or something. All right, there we go. That one right there. Yeah, that one. That one. Okay, I need to clean off my stamps right here. They're not really stamping out really super dark. It's because this is probably crusted up with a bunch of StazOn and hybrid ink and everything like that. So I clean off my stamps about once every, I don't know. It's probably like once every 2 years or something like that. All right, so that's looking like that. This moon's going to go in here somewhere, like about like so. Now, we need to start bringing in some other images down here, and we'll anchor this lower portion out. I don't think I haven't really utilized this type of surface before to represent things like grass, so we'll see how that goes. All right, this is the grass texture, and this one is the sedge filler stamp. This one is good for things like foregrounds, okay? I could just use only this one right here if I want to, but this is a big space right here, so I often feel that going with, kind of a little bit more of a varied texture across such a large area like that just looks a little bit better. And you'll see how I blend this all in. We're going to be adding in some reeds in here as well. And that'll kind of match or mimic all of this fibery type of texturing in the printable vinyl here. So, as I wrote in the description, this is the first time I'm using this particular holographic cardstock in terms of the pattern of it. Hello, Sandy. Yeah, it's a cold scenario here. In a month, we'll stamp out some, maybe even in a couple weeks, we'll stamp out some warm scenarios for anyone in a cold environment. Okay, I'm going to go for this large boulder right here in the foreground, but what we do is we mask off some of this grass like this. You have a little bit of it showing, in this case about 1/4 inch or something like that. And then we'll go like this right here. I'm probably stamping about half of it. I mean, you can go more. I'm just, in this instance here, I thought, let's go with something like that, because I have some more rocks that I want to build up into this area up here, so I just need room for it. I don't want to, stamp this whole thing up here and just have this tiny little bit remaining. Okay, let's go with that, and then some other rocks right here. And if you can see right in here, where I've brought this white pigment ink into the center, from the side a little bit farther, I was doing it with the idea of these rocks, or just some rocks in mind, so I can just bring that right on in there like so. And again, so not so much of that texturing is showing right through the rock because I've whited it out first. Some of it will be showing through. Some of the patterning will be showing through. That is. And like that. And let's just use the same one. I was going to use the smaller one right here, but I think the larger one again. So I'm just going to be using this side of it. Maybe it's ink up more than you think you'll need, just in case. We'll go up about like so. About like that. So with this icy scenario, that's why I didn't, have this just represent snow or something like that. It's supposed to look like more like ice. Otherwise, like everything, all of these objects would just be, covered here. All right, let's get a little bit more of this one here. We're going to mask right over this right here. So make your stamps, really utilize your stamps and the different parts of your stamps, and you can really reiterate the forms, for a lot of different usages, across the surface. And I try to make all my designs where, if you're repeating the pattern, the object several times, it's not going to look so symmetrical. Okay. All right, let's go with, I'm going to have some shadows being cast by these trees. I'm just wondering if I want, some additional rocks in there. I think we should though, huh? All right, let's go with the smaller version. Okay, just remember Brilliant's pigment ink, okay, which is the water-based pigment ink, onto the water-based surface of the printable vinyl sticker papers. Okay, let's do this right here, like that. And then what I'll do is, where this is going to go in here, let's put some of these, the tops of a couple of these rocks right along the horizon line right in here. Otherwise, it's just too straight with no kind of variation. So let's do this in here. I don't know, just put it wherever you want. And you can see that right there. I mean, it ends kind of abruptly. So I'm just putting this right in here to create a little bit more of a transition into this lower section. Which I don't often, I don't do that a lot. Sometimes I'll put like some reeds or grass or something like that growing in there, but see something like that, with that little bit right in there, I think that'll be a little bit more harmonious of a transition in here, like that. Maybe a little bit more even, huh? See that right in there. Let's do this. One more. that. Okay, and that will go like that. All right, already looking a little bit more three-dimensional, huh? Just with the use of a couple rocks. Several impressions of the couple rocks, but... All right. Now, let's see here. Let's add in more of this kind of grassy type of texturing in here. We'll go with the smaller sedge filler stamp. This is really heavily inked up because I just inked it up quite a bit before this, before coming on live here. So I'm going to wipe off the perimeter a little bit like this because I don't want to get it too heavy on the sides, which it tends to look like sometimes if you just re-ink and you're using like a really thick style of ink, such as a pigment ink. Come in here like this. And we have this grassy terrain right in there. That's kind of an abrupt transition right into that. So we go like this. And then what you do is you just come right into this area like this. I'm kind of overlapping about a 1/4 inch or so. You don't need to mask off any of your rocks. You know, the rocks are kind of solid enough. There's open areas on the rocks right there where I don't necessarily want to stamp like this right over that rock, but you can kind of come into it like a 1/4 inch or a 1/2 inch. And see the space right in here. Now see if this represented something like snow or ice, which, I mean, it could still. I probably wouldn't be using so much of this here. I would make all of this kind of water in here. So I wouldn't have this grass texture in here. All right, something like that. You know what? I think let's come into it more with this. So I stamped it over the areas that I applied the white pigment ink, but let's come into it more with just this pattern directly on top of the holographic. So I got a little bit of that texturing right in there like that. I think that looks better in terms of like a icy grass look, I guess. Maybe not what you've seen out in front of you, you know, if you live in those areas. But for this purpose of holographic paper representing something that's supposed to look a little bit more natural or semi-natural, we'll have some of that texturing going right in there like that. So yeah, like that. You get some of that holographic kind of showing through those areas right in there. God, that patterning is so crazy. All those holographics are really pretty cool and fun to work with. Okay, let's see what we're working with here. Like that. All right. A little bit more texturing, and then let's get to our lighting in here, which is the most fun for me. I love adding in and watching like the shadows and light kind of start to develop. Or, I don't know, I guess the most fun is when you start seeing it, not developing, I guess developing, but it's really when it starts to certain components and areas and concepts start coming together. If they do. All right. It's a little bit more of the tiny rock small texturing in here. I'm kind of anchoring down my objects in here a little bit more, which are the rocks. And this is going to give me a little bit of a head start with adding shade to my forest floor area. Oh. Do I add in? I think I do. Or should. I should add in this grass here right now before I start adding in my shading, I think. Because this will stamp the best right now before I start applying things like, colored pencil and other colors and things like that in here. All right, so the reeds large has always been my kind of go-to foreground grassy element. So it's like this kind of represents kind of near, middle ground, or far, this is usually foreground too, but it's a little bit farther away and then farthest. But this, this right here could go in the foreground as well. But just in general, that's kind of the, whatever the sequencing in terms of representing distance in an area. And then, let me see if, yeah, I do have my smaller version of it right here. There's also an Art Foamies version of this. I love it so much. Smaller version right here, just make sure you don't stamp it like that where you get those big old clusters. So you put pressure on it. I put it down here and not up on the blades like that. So you get a nice crisp top of grass blade, okay? And that goes for the larger one too, but especially with the smaller one. Now, if I go dark enough with this, the shading in here, you can also stamp something like this out. If it's really dark in here, with black brilliance ink or something like that, you can take this and go back to your white, ink it up, and stamp it in here if it's supposed to represent something like a, ice on the different objects. You had your Snowmageddon. Okay, Sunday, Monday, Western Pennsylvania. Yeah. How was it? How much snow did you get, Zelicest? 2102 tanks if the power goes out in case Joey needs them. We have oil lamps. Yeah, you're set, aren't you? Anytime I hear about, these big, huge storms and stuff like that coming through, my mind always kind of travels back to my visit to Maine. I think it was the second visit, or I don't know, whatever, the first or second, but I don't know, just people were talking in my class when we were starting working, and I don't know, they were talking about some storm coming through, and it was really just very commonplace for, I guess, or maybe not commonplace, but it wasn't out in the ordinary for them lose power in certain areas or certain areas of the state or something like that, like for a week or two during the winter time. I thought, wow, that's losing power for a long time. It was in that West Rockport area. They were talking about that. And yeah, you really got to be prepped. Okay, so here's the moon like this. I'm trying to get my bearings right here about where I should place this. I don't think I want it up here. I think I want it down here a little bit. And I should stamp something in here too. If I stamp this low enough, I could stamp like some kind of figure in here, like a deer or something like that. And then I would stamp it in front of this moon. So you'd stamp it, like for example, okay, so if this is going in right in here, what you do is you stamp it right down in here like that. And then you stamp a certain portion of it right in here. And then like you just, you know, I put that right over the top of it. It might have to be this larger one though, I think. Like something like this maybe. All right, let's do that right there. Let's see. But yeah, reading all of that in terms of your prep work, I was thinking, yeah. When I was at that store in Maine, I was thinking, yeah, you really got to be, everyone's got to be really prepared, apparently. Or anywhere where the weather's like that. All right. Like this. Holding this down for a little bit longer because I have to penetrate that layer of white pigmenting that I applied in there before all of these different impressions here. Like that, and then I had to figure out a location on this moon. We don't want any of these kind of darker shapes to be within the silhouette of the head, so I'm just kind of avoiding that. Or trying to avoid it. All right, so something like that. And then this is holographic sticker paper. Get my bearings here. I think it goes like that right there. I think that's matched up there. Roughly. All right, so holographic vinyl sticker paper. You know, you get to utilize that aspect of it. It is fairly aggressive of an adhesive, so you know, be fairly mindful when you place this down. All right, so we have this like that. It's looking like this right in here. We have some of that white there showing through our figure there, but just take a colored pencil and just darken that up a little bit. Just depending on how much is showing through. This one's not too much, and I'm, not really bothered by it too much, but, you know, just kind of darkening it with this pencil right here, it takes all of, whatever, 10 seconds to do, so. And it's kind of the main subject, focal point of the scene, or I don't know, maybe the moon is the focal point, I don't know, both of them in conjunction. So you might as well just kind of darken them up a little bit. All right, so we can see our moon here, so I can see where, my shadows might be cast in here in relation to our light source. Let me zoom out a little bit, about like that. You cook with gas, yeah. It's the ultimate thing to cook with, huh? I bought recently a new cooktop and replaced one that was, I don't know, it was probably like 22 years old or something like that. But the thought was that potentially, I could go in with a electric top, but it was like, nah. We're cooking with gas. All right, so let's see here. I need to get my bearings right here and just where I'm adding my shadows in here. Oh, wow, 12 to 14 inches, huh, of snow. Hello, Caroline. Yeah, they don't have the experience, huh, with the prep work. Okay, let's get some tone laid out down here. I want this lower section to be pretty dark, After all, this is supposed to be a kind of a nighttime type of scenario, of course. We'll take our liberties with certain things in terms of lighting, but just in general, I want this to be pretty dark in here. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm adding in a lot of shading at the base of my, in this case, rocks right in here. Okay. And then, based on these tree trunks, I might add a little bit more kind of a directional lighting, like with a shadow running through here. I don't know if I don't have a lot of room to do that though. So just kind of adding a general kind of tone at the base of these objects might be kind of sufficient. But we'll see. If you kind of do those, those tree types of things, then you have those directional shadows coming, off of it like that from your light source. It looks a little bit more dramatic. But we'll see if we have space for it in here. Okay, this shouldn't take too long right here. So if you just joined in, I added kind of a base of some white pigment ink in here. I've stamped a bunch of textures over it, grass textures and rocks in here. But what we're doing is we're just going in like at the base of these rocks and adding in some shadows now. And by adding in that white underneath these rocks, it allows me to apply this black colored pencil in here. This is a watercolor pencil, but same thing, black colored pencil or watercolor pencil. You can apply this on top of the white pigment ink that was pre-applied before stamping the imagery onto the surface, onto this paper. Because otherwise, if I just use this pencil directly onto that surface, I don't think I can, you might be able to add a little bit of it, but not very much. Not to the point where you're doing kind of like noticeable shading on here. You have to kind of white out, certain areas first. Okay, these rocks right here. We'll model them a little bit more. All right, so there's some shading coming in. Kind of just in general, it's kind of like an perimeter darkness or vignette type of thing. But then just where your specific objects are, you can kind of go in to those areas and just right at the base of them, add in that extra little shading like that. Okay. For all of you getting all that snow, do you like the snow, or do you like it early on and kind of does it get old, after like a month or whatever, a whole season of it? Okay, we have that. Let's take a look at it. So now it's looking in context. That it's like way too light still. When I was looking at it like that, I thought, it looks pretty dark. But when I go like this, it's like, oh, I need to go like much darker. It looks like a daytime type of scenario down here or something. I need to really darken this up and make it look more night. More of a night scenario. So let's go back to our cotton ball. I like to use my pencil first, to get those little detailed areas in there. And then I like going back in kind of with a smoother application look with the brilliance again. Isn't that moon fun, Sandy? On the holographic like that? Let's see. We never know during hurricane season what we will. Yeah, hurricane season. That is so crazy. I watch these videos of I don't know. They come up in my feed, so I probably watched them, so they keep popping up. It's just like things like um, insurance coverage or something like that in places that, where there's hurricanes, Florida mainly, the videos that I see a lot of. California, I mean, it was all about like earthquake insurance for a while there, 20 years ago or something. But of course, now it's all about wildfire issues and considerations when it comes to coverage. All right, so you can see the difference between one side and the other side like that. So this black pigment ink kind of creates this nice vignette in here with a little bit more of a wider amount of coverage here. And this area down here, I really need to address. I think I want to add in some color in here too, but I like to hit the larger kind of shading lighting scheme. When you add in shade, you're defining the light areas through the use of darkness. So I like to get that established. And then on papers like this, the coloring that I do, unless it's like a fall type of scenario where there's like tons of different colors or something. But for the most part, this is mostly like a tonal kind of exercise where I'm just kind of establishing shadows and grayscale in here. And then the colors are kind of like more like embellishments or something like that, like as if I were, I would liken it to, you know, like back when people would colorize black and white photos or something like that. You know, the grayscale and shadow and lighting and all that, textures are already kind of taken care of, and you're just kind of embellishing a little bit with some additional hue. You know, you can add temperature to it or something, and warm or cool tones or whatever. All right, there's some rocks right in here. I'm working on this upside down because I can't like I can't see what I'm doing from this side, so, but I'm kind of coming into here at the base of these rocks, like that. And see, you can leave some areas that are kind of open right over here, like that, you know, so it doesn't have to be like completely dark on the outside perimeter, even if you are doing kind of like a vignette in this perimeter kind of darkness application or lighting scenario. I like darkening kind of, especially like the four corners. I think that kind of, it rounds out the composition a little bit more and gets rid of these. It doesn't get rid of, but it de-emphasizes, you know, the sharp angles in here, you know, which are on most of our pieces because we're usually working in, you know, rectangles or squares, something like that, not ovals. So it just kind of softens up everything like that. And I always mention it, like it's just like portrait photography. There's always kind of this little bit of a vignette around the subjects just to soften the frame up a little bit, or a lot. Oh, yeah, you're not set up for snow and stuff. Yeah. I have a cousin that lives in Seattle, and I remember her talking about, oh, yeah, it snowed here, which I think they're getting more of over the last 20 years. But she says, yeah, people just tend to kind of freak out a little bit, you know, whenever it snows. Maybe that could be said for Southern California when it rains. Just when it rains, you know, people are, there's so many more accidents on the freeway and stuff like that. But yeah. All right, so see that? It looks like so much better now in terms of kind of our framing in here goes. It's still a little bit light though. I think I can darken this up a little bit more. I'll come in here with like some dry brush types of applications. In other words, you're just going on here with a really dry applicator. It's a little bit too hot down here for me still. All right, let's just go with that for right now. I came in here a little bit, maybe like a 1/4 inch with like another 5% version of black. Let's do this right here too. Let's kind of frame this upper portion off a little bit more, and then I'll come into it with the black colored pencil. So you're doing this too. You're kind of framing this off a little bit, and I think it'll make it look like this moon is standing out a little bit lighter, you know, the darker you make the area around the perimeter like that, which I didn't really think about, but until you get things kind of situated, you know, you're not exactly sure what things are going to look like or what things might, you know, you can do that will, you know, benefit the scenario. Like I didn't know I was going to stamp that deer before I started the scene. Oh, you get deer in your backyard? That's cool. The place that I lived in, LA, you're thinking LA, but it was, what do you call it? East County. It was in Los Angeles County, but it was in Whittier. And I lived in the foothills where there was a lot of open area in there for things like hiking and things like that. But had this house, and then it was in part of this like little canyon area, and we would get deer coming around. Sometimes they would lay down, especially, I would see it especially during the summertime. It would come and like lay on in the shade on our on the back porch area. We're gonna get that, or like a coyote. At nighttime, I would often be working. I would keep, if it was warm out, I would have the door open. The screen door would be, closed, but we'd get like skunks. It's always like a family of raccoon too coming around. So I'd see those. But I loved it. All right, let's see here. So I'm darkening in the side of this tree, kind of on the opposite side of the moon, and we'll do the opposite right here. Right side shaded a little bit more. All right, like that. All right, I don't think I have room here for directional kind of shading coming off of these trees, but let me see if I can add a little bit of it. So this tree right here, I just have this kind of little bit of a stronger shadow form coming kind of this way. I'll go real dark at the base of these trees like that. And this one right here, this one's like in a more distant little slope like that, so I'll just leave that as is. But I'm going with a kind of a pretty dark shadow area like that because this paper is so bold. I'm kind of being a little bit more conservative in terms of my shadows, but I don't need to be because the paper is so bold with that texturing. It's like bolder than, I don't know, some of the other, just like plain holographics with that patterning in there. So I'm going like way bolder with my shadows. Like almost like to like full black here. All right. Let's see. That. All right. So see all these colors in here? I need to bring some of those tones up into here a little bit too. Just with like some pastels up in this white area. But let's go into some highlighting now on our trees facing that. Oh, before I do that too, let's have a little bit of an overhang with some leaves coming down here just to kind of break up these shapes a little bit too. Oh, you burn things on the electric stove, huh? Is it more prone to that then? Are you talking about the foods or something like that, or just leaving things on top of the stove? Oh, driving on ice. I cringe to think of what that would be like. Four snowstorms, huh? Caroline, is that kind of like a out of the ordinary, or is that something that's kind of been the case in recent years? It's like so many extremes of weather, really worldwide. I've had customers in places like I don't know if it was Melbourne, Australia, or something like that, but it's probably been, I don't know, it was like 10 or 15 years ago, but just places getting flooded out, people, getting their houses flooded out. Maybe it was, I don't know, it was just a couple of years ago, I think. One of my clients that carries Stampscapes in the United Kingdom, their shop or something like that, their warehouse or something like that, I think got flooded out. All right, that's a little better like that. I should really put some, I don't know, I'm kind of chicken to do it right here. Stamp it out in white, then stamp it out in black over the top of it. Maybe make it look too busy or something like that. Let's do that. Let's do this too. All right. We have these grassy textures right down here, and I think it would benefit the scenario if we stamp some of these right up here too. If I had like this really small deer in the background or something like that, I probably wouldn't stamp something this large. I'd go with the smaller one, or not at all. But with that larger deer like that, having grass kind of this tall, a few feet in front of it, looks, fairly natural. So let's see, we have something like this. Okay. And it kind of fills in certain areas too, where you have to do less highlighting and everything like that. The more kind of objects you have within a scene. All right, let's get to some lighting in here. We have our shading, which defines light, but then we'll hit it a little bit more with our pastel pencil, and then we'll finish it off with some acrylic paint pen work, which I think this, especially this lower section, is going to benefit from on all these rocks in here. All right. This part right here kind of, it always kind of, there's a lot of contrast between white and this dark blue paper, so it always kind of gives me pause, a little bit when I start this off. Because I want it to go on looking kind of graceful, and so see, when I mention all this about kind of just going with a really light application or something like that, it's not really it's instruction, but it's something that I'm always kind of reminding myself of too. All right, so a little bit of a highlight on those sides. It's going to get lighter too, but I start off with this lighter kind of application of it here. Because you can apply this, what I'm getting is you can apply it and it's like, oh my God, that looks like way too extreme or something sometimes. Until you kind of get the lighting in there and establish that. So let's see here. Did I miss anyone coming in here? Hello, Marta and Linda. Good to see you. Oh, you can't judge the heat on an electric stove. Yeah, that's a good point right there. Okay. What stamp is your moon? What stamp is your moon? Oh, that stamp. Sandy, it's on Nature set number 35. It's on the night, Cozy Cabin's night time. I think that's the set. All right, so see that right there? Yeah, kind of starting off doing this with the pastel too. You can just kind of remove or erase anything that's, might be a little bit too extreme if you've applied too much of it. I'll kind of have this coming across this tree a little bit more like this, and in some areas. So you kind of have a line, and then you just, you kind of make it a little bit wider in some areas. That's a little bit too much, but see, like that right there. It looks a little bit more gestural if it's a little bit thick, and then thin, thick, then, you can play around with opacity too, so you can go a little bit lighter in some area and a little bit darker in other areas, and so you're playing around with thick and thin on there. Years ago there was a lot of snow. Huh. Oh, I'm tiny. It's always one of those things. If it reads good tiny, it probably, as far as like composition goes, it's a little bit, it means it's effective, huh, Linda? The composition, at least. Okay, so I'm playing around with this a little bit more too. See, I'm making this area a little bit lighter. Right in there. So you can kind of add to that application of white in there. And let's go back to the black here. Sometimes you go a little bit lighter on one side. It's like it opens the door for going a little bit more kind of darker. On the flip side of the, whatever, the value spectrum, value range. We'll make this little cloudy form in here a little bit more see-through. It could be this little area of snow or something like that, or ice, but so I kind of brought this down a little bit into that white mist or whatever it is in the background, like that. Okay. I have this, like so. All right. Let's hit it with some crisp applications of light. I don't think I can use the pastel pencil on, that down there. It'd be kind of cool if you could, but I don't think you really can. Oh, here, I almost forgot. So let's add in some tone into these rocks as well. Okay, so it's just grayscale plus the colors of the holographic down here, but this looks a little anemic to me. Okay, like especially down in the shadows. I like to have my shadows a little bit more full looking. Okay, so let's add some tone. This blue is a really good one for that. Let me see, reference this paper. So you can see a little bit of that bluish tinge in there. It looks a little bit more green. Well, let's try a little bit of both in here. All right, so I'm hitting this in the darker areas right in here, and then I'm kind of bringing it out into a little bit of a lighter area. So you see that little bit of tone right there? And we'll hit some of these rocks too, like in that transition between the gray and lit area. Here, sorry, I'm explaining this. So here's a rock like this, and I've toned it like this with, you know, the colored pencil or something like that. And then I'm going to have this illuminate up here. I'm going to put some like white highlighting up here, but seeing this area between here, this gray and this white, what I've done is I'm coming up through this. So you get kind of this richer looking gray in here. It's a temperature gray, but then I'm bringing this a little up into the area that I didn't color with grayscale. So it's a little bit of a transition area right in here between the shadow and light, but you get a little bit of a hint of that color in there. So see, that just adds a little bit of whatever color character to these areas and objects. Yeah, you don't have to be real careful about it either. It's just not in this scenario at least, but see this kind of this glow right in here now. I don't know, I tend to use cool colors. I should really do some warmer tones too. Warmer tones in a cool color scheme is even, you know. All right, see that right in there? Doesn't have a little bit more, I don't know, character to it. You see that blue right in there? That's from this. But it's not so anemic looking. Let's go a little bit harder. I hardly ever use this pencil like that, you know? But this paper is kind of allowing me to do that. Or I don't know, what about allowing, maybe demanding me to do it, just, you know, for it to even kind of show up there. But see that tone right there? That looks really good, I think. And remember, anywhere where you can see this blue, it's probably because I've added in that white brilliance ink underneath it. Underneath that area. I can't add that blue tone like right in here. It's not going to apply to that vinyl, uncoated vinyl. Uncoated with a brilliance ink. I mean, it's coated with emulsion, but... Okay, that's much better. Like that. Seems like that. There we go, like that. When I held this up right here, it was like really kind of, I couldn't see anything right there. It's like it has that glare in it or something like that. Okay, that's like super heavy-handed right here. Let's go right over here. And here's that greenish tinge right here if we want a little bit of warmth in here. Actually, that looks pretty good. Kind of has a little bit of a glowing type of look down in here now, like that. So we get that. Yeah, it's a little bit of temperature in here. It doesn't match this. It's more of like a violet blue or something, but you know, who cares? Hello, Clipsol. Good to see you. a little bit of this navy-ish blue, like so. All right, I think I'm ready for the highlighting here now. Good to see you, Deb. If I missed anyone, hello to anyone or anyone not posting. Thanks for checking out the video here. Did you pick the color due to the... I did a little bit, Caroline. I picked the color due to... I'm usually going for at least some of the colors within the color scheme of the paper, just so that it kind of harmonizes with it. But there's almost, in these metallic holographics like this, there's almost, it really has the whole spectrum of the rainbow within that color scheme, including the warmer tones. But sometimes there's a little bit more, like, see, like this. At certain angles, these holographics are predominantly a certain tone. I tend to think that they're more kind of purpley violet, okay? But then when you hold them at other angles, you get all those other colors in there. So, you know, yeah, it's a little bit of that. And plus the blue too is the blue up here. It's a different blue. It's a different spectrum of blue. Looks like you're going into the warmer spectrum like that. But I don't know. Maybe it contrasts decently for that. Yeah, I mean, the colors up top. So if I was doing this, if I was doing it on like a piece of orange cardstock and it was going to be a, you know, whatever, a Sedona sunset or something like that, I would probably do warmer tones down here in my shadows. I would warm up the shadow areas as opposed to like a cooler tone shadow. All right. It's not a rule or anything like that. It was just, I don't know, that's generally kind of that's generally my strategy. Okay, so adding in these highlights on tops of my rocks in here where I've retained some kind of lighter areas within the form, which is usually on the top surfaces of it. Which is also how it is on the designs too. The designs themselves have the little bit of highlighting on them. Even if it's kind of like a silhouette, a lot of things are like silhouettes. I usually have a little bit of lighting in them, most of the times, not all the time, but just to make the forms look a little bit more rounded. And they become a little bit more versatile if you know, draw some lighting into the design. Okay, so you see these rocks here with that little bit of highlight on top of them like so. If the rock is like in complete darkness, I usually don't put a little highlight on them. So see, that's right in here. There's a little bit of, like, I'm not going to highlight these rocks over here, but these ones right over here, kind of, you know, close to the light, I'll put a little bit of a highlight on them. And then maybe as it moves into the darkness, maybe the highlight is just like a small little line, or it could even be like a dot, you know. So you go from a little bit of heavier highlighting, more white, into the shadows as it transitions less white and then less, okay? But if you want something to stand out like that, you can kind of put a little nick of color on it like that. Now, if you're doing this on like a glossy cardstock or something, which I used to do most of my work on, if you add these little dots of paint like this, if you don't like them, you can just take like a little scraper and just scratch it right off. All right, but see those little highlights, how much more dimensional those look like that with those highlights on there. So this rock right here can probably use a little bit more. I kind of do a little bit of a line these days, and then I'll kind of add some little dots like that. It's kind of like scumbling, they call it, with a paintbrush, but I'm doing it with like a, fine tip pen like that. All right. So it looks a little bit better. I think this kind of, I don't know, this kind of relates to these objects within the scene a little bit more, because there's these really light areas within that holographic like that. And now here's some kind of matching value in terms of lightness on there. Okay, we'll do the same thing on these trees right here, where it's a little bit lighter on the tree from the pastel pencil. I'll add a little bit of a crisper application. I'm just kind of following suit with the with what I did with the pastel, but I'm doing it with a like a more opaque medium here with the white acrylic. All right, and let's see. Can you see those dots, Linda? On your phone? I don't know if anyone can see it unless you're watching on like a big like TV set or something like that. And then you see a little bit more of a line that you can add some dots down there where it's transitioning into that area below. I like those holographic moons. Isn't it fun? Stamping that on the holographic. I got into a glow in the dark kick with my moons. I was like, had to have that glow in the dark moon, effect on everything. And that's probably going to be a little bit more holographic moons, maybe. All right, let's add in some additional texturing in here. We've gone with kind of softer textures and lighting, and crisper textures and lighting with the acrylic paint pen. Now we're going back to softer light again. So we've started off this card using the white pigment ink, laid down in the background on top of the dark blue paper, on top of the holographic printable vinyl. And then I'm going to finish it off with what we started with, but we're going to be just putting that over the objects. So it's like you're going kind of, I don't know, whatever, like full circle with that. All right, let's see. I'll add this into my lighter areas, I think. Okay, let's go in right here. I don't want to have a big blob. So just go like really slow, kind of blot it off first, and you're sacrificing some of your shadows that you've kind of established in here, but you can still see the shadow underneath. I'm not blocking it off like opaque, right? It's just to look like mist. So you can see that where it's been applied right in here. Let's put a little bit down here. So see it right at the base of that rock right there. I go a little bit more methodically than I do on a piece of white paper or something like that, just because this paper, although I've already kind of layered it with a lot of different media, and I'm really applying it on top of that media. This paper here, this printable vinyl, can still grab it quite a bit in the areas where you know, the vinyl is really still exposed. So it's a good thing though too, because it, you know, it doesn't take long to apply this, but just don't go in here and, you know, put a big blob of white ink down, you know, just abruptly and have it stuck there. If it is, then you just go back in with your colored pencils or something like that if it's too, you know, whatever, blobby. And just work it out again, just color it and shade it and everything like that. All right, I'm not going to do too much right here, again, because we want to retain the characteristic of the paper, but you see that right in here? It's a little bit more atmospheric. Here, actually, I want a little bit more right in here too. Like that, there's a big kind of area of mist right in here. This was kind of heavy looking to me. So having a little bit of this mist right here kind of, I don't know, kind of complements it a little bit. All right, so we have that right there. And then let's put some right up in here somewhere. You don't want to put it across the whole thing, but you just kind of, maybe like right around in here, or maybe coming through these trees right here, like in the between these two, maybe. Let's see what it looks like at least. Trying to get that to blend out a little bit. It's taken me a little bit of time, but you know, just kind of keep working with it. If it doesn't, you know, maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's absorbing into the paper faster or something. Okay, we're putting some down by this deer's legs. I think this looks a little harsh over here, so let's bring some of this up into here. Oh yeah, I forgot. I was going to bring some of the, a little bit of tinge of some color into this white here too. Just because it would probably be, if it's mist or something like that, it would be reflecting some of the colors being cast by the, you know, the source of light, which is, you know, a piece of holographic, you know, cardstock on the moon. Okay, so that, see that right there, that mist, and that looks a lot better, doesn't it? Right back in here now. If you like it, then just kind of add more, you know, until you just completely overdo it. All right. Yeah, it looks a lot better. So that kind of brought that area to life a little bit, huh? Like this mist right in here. So it's like here, here, and here. So it's like a little bit softer, darker, softer, darker, softer. You know, like that. And yeah. And okay, let's do this right here. Let's bring in some of my little fireflies, or as they call it, lightning bugs. Now you wouldn't have them, you know, like in the chill of winter, I know. But this is scenic stamping. we'll call them just kind of like magical. They're magical little whatever orbs. But see this like area in here, it's not very interesting. So if you put kind of like these little things, there's something of light in those areas. It just kind of looks a little bit more kind of whimsical. But from a textural and kind of interest perspective, it just makes those areas potentially more interesting looking. It's like a dead space. It kind of brings those dead spaces to life a little bit. Like that. And then let's do this. See this little space in here, or I don't know, wherever. Why don't we do this? We'll do here, here, and like over here, maybe? We'll carry that kind of little, whatever, lighting convention. So it brings a little bit more, I don't know, whatever, visual continuity, you know, from top to bottom. So in other words, oh, that really helped it, didn't it? So yeah, these two pieces of paper, you know, are really, really different types of papers from one another. You know, just a piece of matte dark blue cardstock, then you have a metallic holographic whatever, vine textured vinyl sticker paper. So we're just kind of bringing in like little things to both surfaces. You know, there's darkness and shading in both of them. And then you get highlights in both of them. Similar forms, you know, with the highlighting on the rocks and the trees up there. But then these little things like this, these little orby things, it's just like one other thing to, you know, bring something in common to both of those different areas, you know, to give it something to relate to. And then we have, you know, the holographic up top there like that. Let's bring a little bit of, let's bring a little bit of this blue. Maybe in here. I want it to be light, so I'm being careful not to darken it. Here, I'll just, let me see here. There's this pink right here. I'll keep it real subtle though. I'll add it in kind of the darker area right here. Okay, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little bit of pink right there, okay? So it gives that area right in here a little bit of something in common with the colors that are going on up here and down in here now. So it's something really subtle. But anyways, okay, so anyways, frozen, I don't know, whatever, frozen something. Maybe that doesn't look like frozen grass to me anymore, but like a frozen little pond. More things should probably be stamped out in like white too, but this is like my first experiment with that type of paper in this type of scenario, so I went with what I was comfortable with. Just with a different type of surface here. So a lot more textures down here with the grass to go along with that surface like that. Pretty fun to work with. And I don't know, whatever, one of the 5, 6 different patterns of holographic vinyl sticker paper. I don't know if there's another one. I think there's like 1 or 2 others that I haven't worked with that I've seen other people use in the past. But yeah. I don't know. Did I answer your question, Caroline, about colors? So the colors, like I said, in the holographics, you can pretty much use just about any kind of colors you want, but this one's just happens to be paired with a dark blue up here, so I went a little bit more blue tinge down here. It doesn't relate a lot up there because, again, I didn't use a lot of the violet toned blue, that this paper is. I don't know. I don't know what the color. It's like a. It's not an ultramarine. What I don't know. What color blue is this? It's not quite navy-ish. I think it has a little tinge of red. I don't know. That's what it looks like to me, for some reason. But I don't know. You can kind of start off with that as a reference and then just build onto it from there. So in other words, I went with kind of more of these neutral blues. That other one isn't neutral. It's a little bit warmer, but you can start off with the neutral, and then if you want to move into other tones, you can kind of work into your violet tones or something like that. So here's like your, I don't know, I'm not going to grab like all of my pencils here, but your color scheme is kind of like this in a way. It's your blue tones, and then, there's other transitional ones like turquoise in here and stuff like that. But if you're going with some sort of base, like shadows or something like that, it's easy to kind of start off with kind of more of a neutral color to a couple other different color schemes. Like you can go into your warm tones from here on the color wheel, or you can go into your violets this way. So I added in those blue tones like that, which gave me the opportunity for adding in kind of more violets or warmth. So you can always kind of do that. Or, things like if you're doing like a warm tone scene, you can start off with brown tones or something like that, and those brown tones allow you to kind of, brown's a warm tone, but I find that color scheme you can really go into your blue tones or your warm or cool tones from brown, so something like that. Grayscale is really easy, so you can start off with like grayscale a lot of times too. This is like one way to work. When I'm working on this type of vinyl sticker paper like this, a lot of it is just kind of, like I said, it was just kind of like shading and doing light. So I'm not really thinking about colors. I'm thinking about just grayscale and making forms look more three-dimensional by adding like a shadow at the base of them in this case. And then the color was just kind of a secondary thought of just kind of tinting, the scene with colors that were kind of related both to the paper and a little bit to this, surface up here. I tried to add in some of this blue right here over the top of that, but this blue right here is probably why it's so big. This blue in my Marvy, not my Marvy, but my Prismacolors, it's a little bit harder of a wax. Maybe this one's a little bit, okay, this one's allowing me to go in here a little bit more. Some of my pencils are a little bit too hard in consistency. So especially if it's going to be like the third color or something like that that I'm trying to stack on top or layer on top, it won't apply on top of the vinyl. If I was working on a piece of paper that had some tooth to it, I could probably apply a little bit more. But on this one, it was my dark blues are just, I don't know, this one didn't really apply either, but I have a lot of colored pencil already laid down on here, so it didn't, apply too much. If I wanted to use a little bit more of this and have it show, I should have done it first over the top of directly onto that white pigment ink that I had previously applied in there. So anyways, little strategic things, but I don't know. I used a lot more colored pencil on here than I thought I would, just to, incorporate that really super hot, textured paper in there. It's really loud paper, so, kind of incorporating this in with some scenes, this is one thing. It's kind of hard to imagine this as being kind of like a mellow paper, but then when you start moving up into like stuff like this, in this type of setting, I don't know, I found it necessary to go like a lot heavier with my shading and colors and stuff like that. Let's see. Hello, Cynthia. Good to see you. Thanks for the thumbs up there, Bonnie. The dots look like a line. Did you use a paper punch for your moon? No, no, I didn't use a paper punch. Just scissors right here. So, yeah, right here. I wish I had a paper punch for that. That would make my moon work a lot easier. No, you just trim it out. I didn't, I'm trying to stay on the line, but I went over it a little bit and under it in other places. I hope it looks round though. There's one part too. I was trying to fit that moon in a little space that I had on a little scrap piece of holographic, but it got cut off on one side. So I was thinking, I hope people don't see that like, straight, slight edge on there. Yeah, Caroline, don't the lightning bugs look good in there? It really it finished off this piece really well, I thought. When I saw it like this, I thought, oh, having up here and then down in here really kind of finished it off nicely. They look like they're kind of floating too in this reflection card format like that. I don't know. It might be like this thing that these two different portions of the card. It's probably the strongest visual, I guess, in terms of whatever an object pattern, between the two zones there. So I thought it really helped it out a little bit. So doing this too, instead, on my last card too, I did that kind of a starry night type of thing behind my full moon like that, which, like I said, not that we have to kind of be realistic in our scenes, after all, we're stamping on, paper and stuff like that and holographics or something like that. But I thought having these little dots down in here, it's a good textural kind of thing to have in a scene. It just adds that extra texture, but I thought it would be better down here, having those little dots, in this lower section. So, when you're doing your winter scenes, you can have lightning bugs in there. We'll just call them, they're little fairies or something like that. They don't have to be lightning bugs if it doesn't make sense to some people. Or if you give a card to someone and say, hey, man, you got these lightning bugs and, a snowy winter scene. Just say, hey, they're little fairies. Like a Tinkerbell type of thing. Yeah, ice crystal shimmering. Yeah. So yeah, if you did stuff like this, if you now see if I stamp some of these objects out, especially like these reeds or branches or something like that, if we stamped them out in like white, like a bare branch, you can put these types of things on the branch and kind of have it illuminated like that. And I think yeah, that would be exactly what they would be cool for, Marta. All right. Thanks for checking out the experiment with this crazy type of cool holographic printable vinyl. Again, it's my first time trying out that pattern, and I think it looks pretty cool. I'll have to think about some other types of applications, but I think that patterning in there would look really good for doing it like an ice skating type of scene, like a frozen lake type of thing. So we'll have to try some of that out the next time. The next time I use that particular pattern there. I couldn't read what I was typing out there. I've been looking at this holographic here for too long with that holographic light reflecting back in my eyes. All right, everyone. Good night. Thanks again for checking out the live stream.